Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am your host, Janice. I am a Reiki Master Teacher and self care coach here on Long Island. I am also your guide for tonight on peace. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Sid McNairy. He is the architect of peace. He is a spiritualist and a teacher, helps people connect with their highest and best selves through discipline and meditation and self discovery. He also is a wonderful coach and teacher that loves to help people in all ways. So, welcome, Sid.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I am good. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And yeah, really appreciate being here. I may get stuck staring at this background of this world that looks so plush and green and what's interesting is that I have a hawk, or not a hawk, but a golden eagle tattoo on my back, and it's
Nice.
flying through a tree, and the trees look like this.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah, very cool.
So, I would like to start off with a little bit of your background before peace. So in doing a little recon, I discovered that you were a college coach at Purdue. I went to Valpo, graduated from Valpo.
Oh, good on
I
you.
have friends who graduated from IUPUI, so I am familiar with the Boilermakers.
Right
If you
on,
want,
right on. Yeah,
if you
that was
want.
my start. So, once I left my house, I went to Purdue and played soccer there and started out as a strength coach and then went on to coach at Eastern Illinois, Northern Michigan, Northern Illinois, and Morgan State. And, it was a great beginning of my adult years to learn how to be part of team and connect with people in that way. And at the same time, I mean, when I finally became a Division I coach, I was the youngest coach at the time at 24 years old. So it's a lot of responsibility for a 24-year-old. And then at 31, I became actually, yeah, 30, I became a coordinator, which then, I mean, you're talking a 30-year-old, and our head coach was 31. We were running a campus, and that was a lot, So there was a lot of I'll call it dis-ease in our life at that time. And
Right.
fortunately I had enough in my foundation that helped me find my way towards peace. And then life kept guiding me, and then I met grandmother Morningstar in 2006 after leaving coaching football and dove into my Native American background of four vision quest and went on a whole journey to discover my Egyptian side and all the different things that make me up as a human. And that's kind of what led me to peace. That my life was in a way that I knew it could be better than what it was, and in my own spirit. It wasn't that it was bad. I mean, I had a lot of things, that was part of it, and had my children, but I was on my at the point where I really said, okay, I got to dig in. I was going through my second marriage breakup. The second one was quicker, and it was like, okay, what's the common denominator here? And that was me. So I had to figure out how to shift it. And as things began to shift, when I got my spirit name, Nahi Adonade Nuato Hiadu, which means he who brings peace, um, that's when I committed my life to that. And so that's kind of the beginning journey, the fastest way I've ever
I've
told
ever
that.
told.
Uh, Considering the book took me 130,000 words to write, so that was the fast version.
That's the fast version. I I appreciate the fast version. I do want to go back just a couple beats in something that you said that I think we can all kind of understand when we take a step back, when we truly take that step back and look and say, oh, this problem and that problem and this problem and that problem, and realize, oh, wait, that's me. I'm the common denominator. So kind of when you reach that point, did that help you pivot, or you just kind of like you said something's got to change and you looked at yourself and it's me? How did that help you? I guess is the better question.
Well, at first it was, and I think I learned that through relationships. My grandma likes to say, well, you wanted to go out on all these dates, so go date everyone, and what you don't like in the other person fixing in you, and they won't come back. So, and that was after my first vision quest. I had already gone through my first divorce. I was coming out of my second marriage, and I went on my first vision quest. And my grandmom said, made me break up with the person that was in my life. And she said, now I want you to go and list everything you can think of in a partner. And I did. And then she said, and then call me back. And so I have 10 pages that sits on this shelf back here. And I came back, called her back, and she said, okay, now I want you to go out on dates. And if something is missing on the list and the person you're looking at, fix it in you. So I did that. And then eventually I found somebody that was in my life for 10 years, and there was something that was just missing, and I had to find it because it was in me. And then at one point, I finally gave my wife, now Liz, I said, "Here, will you read this list?" Because I was tired of searching for this person. And she started crying, and she said, "How did you write me down in a book?" And that's when I was like, "Oh, okay." And we have had that life that I was looking for. You know, the peace, the lifting each other up, the care beyond oneself, all these different things that came to be. And so it was a process, but I knew in relationships that I was the one in every relationship. And they all started off great. Like most people in a relationship, nobody gets in a relationship and says, "Man, this really sucks. I'm going to get all the way in." Right? So
Right.
that was it, and I knew, okay, well, I keep putting myself in these relationships. What is it about me that wants to be in these relationships? Regardless of the other person. The other person is the other person, and I can look up and I know that my first wife is now married again. My second wife is not, but my third person that was in my life really heavily, and the one that grandma made me break up with, she got married again, or she got married, not again because she wasn't married to me, but she got married. They ended up divorced, and it was interesting for them, I guess. And and then my last relationship, I knew in my heart I wasn't ready to have another child. I already had 3 children, and she swore that wasn't the case, but yet she's now married with children. So eh, it's okay. We both needed to find what it was for us. And I was that common denominator. No matter what, I was the one that put myself in those relationships. So if they didn't work out, it wasn't them that I needed to shift. Like I tell people this all the time, A plus B equals C. I'm A in this moment, you're B in my life. And C is the relationship we're having. If I don't like the relationship, it's not on you. All I have to do is shift A and I'll get a different C. And so that became the deal. Like I tell people to clean up their side of the street. That's it. That's all you have to do. Once you clean up your side of the street, the other person's will clean up anyway. So that's how it worked out.
That's very cool. I like what the exercise your grandmother made you do. That is, I think, a very worthwhile exercise that maybe we should all try.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just on intimate relationships. It can be uh who's the boss you have, who are the employees you have if you are the boss, and if make a list. And now if the employees that you're hiring are not measuring up, where is it off for you as a leader? And that doesn't mean like someone may show up late all the time for work and you're on time. It doesn't always have to be an exact mirror, but there is something. Now maybe the person hasn't measured up to their communication with the person that shows late. Like there's some mirror that is always happening. And so I think no matter what it is, if we make that list and then we look at ourselves, one finger points out, three are pointing back at us, then we can shift and see a different world in that way.
I love that. And I like how you shifted it to not just intimate relationships, but also all the relationships that we are in. Because we're in friendships, we're in parentships, we're in the familiar. It's like there is some real foundation there. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say the biggest example is I'm Sydney McNairy the third. My son is the fourth. My dad is the second. So I'm in between. And what I've learned is when I think my son needs to do something in the name of being my son, I do it for my father. When my father, if I think that there's something that my father could be different, I do it for my son. And I've watched over time how all of that relationship, grandfather, son, and son,
Grandchild.
grandchild. And I've watched how we've all developed better relationships because of my commitment to being the one in between, making sure that one knows how it can be for the other. And I just feel that's my that's my biggest shift in my life right now. To be able to say, oh, if I want a friend to be a certain way, I need to be the friend that I would want. And if I'm that way, the other person, even if they didn't know it at the time, eventually they start to learn it and become it. And so I just think that's such a profound way. And it's a native thing. The last part of Vision Quest is walking the red road. And that's seeing the divine in everything, which is how am I walking through life looking at all of these relationships as the red road of me walking to the next place?
That is very awesome. And I can also see just recently from personal experience, I was always asking in a certain friendship, personally, what am you know, how am I showing up? What am I doing? And I realized that I wasn't I was being who I was, which wasn't the friend she wanted.
Mm,
So it's like, okay, and so we kind of parted on our various roads, so to speak. But I'm still me, and she's still her, and there's no ill will there. But like you were saying, it's we're no longer good for each other. Not good for each other. I can't say that. We're no longer compatible in that way, and there's no ill will. But going and looking and cleaning up your side of the street or cleaning up my side of the street, it's like, okay, could I have done anything different? Do I need to apologize for anything? And then move forward. I don't know
yeah.
if that's the exact lessons, but that is what I took from what you just said.
Yeah. I mean, it is that because you know, I, I look at my divorces. Nobody leaves perfect. I don't know anybody that says, man, this is so good. I just want to throw it away.
No, no.
Right? Like nobody does that. And so with that being said, when a relationship splits, it takes two people to make it inauthentic. It only
Mhm.
takes one to make it authentic. And so I look at that all the time for myself. Like, okay, why did this relationship break? It didn't break because I was the best at this relationship. It broke because both people have something to do with it not working, and it's okay if it didn't work. But now, if I want to look at the next place I'm going and figure out how to make that a more peaceful, more loving, more greatness for both people, that's on me. That's what I want. I want to evolve, and so that part of it means I've got to look inside of myself.
And when you look inside of yourself, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask every guest, is how do you personally define peace on that reflection?
Yeah, when I look inside of myself, when I think of peace, the first thing is there's two sides of looking at peace. One is a frequency, the other is an emotion. The frequency is where I really look inside of myself. How do I maintain that frequency? Because when I'm in the frequency of peace, I then have access to the greater form of love. Love is everything. So when I'm not in peace, it starts to look like an illusion. It starts to look like anger. It starts to look like hurt, guilt, shame, which are just illusions of a low vibration of love. So peace is the foundation that gives me access to love. That's what it is. without peace, and anyone watching, think about the times that you've been in arguments with people and there is no peace. Are you sitting there saying, man, I really love you? Again, the answer is probably no. When you're really irate at somebody, you're likely not moving from this place of peace that looks like compassion for why the person's there and all those things. So peace is the foundation. Now, when I go beyond it, I'm like, okay, now that I know peace is the foundation, peace is the highest frequency before enlightenment. So when I get to 100% peace is when I'm starting to bump into enlightenment, when I'm at that greatest place for me to be that person that is a conduit of God's endless love. And so that's how I would define it. Peace is the foundation that gives me access to love, and it is the greatest frequency that I can access.
That is a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
And building upon that definition, you're in the frequency of love. How do you find peace? And it's easy when we're in that frequency to find peace and be at peace, but more so, how do you find like peace for yourself in the chaos? Because the world can be very chaotic, especially like if you're working and you're part of the sandwich generation. A lot of people are part of the sandwich generation. So we've got parents and kids, and then there's us in the middle trying to navigate this chaos and find peace. So how
Mm.
do you do that?
Well, first, we teach the art of peaceful living, right? So that 51 years of my journey since I was 3, knowing I wanted peace, to figuring out, all right, how I get peace? And now how can I teach other people the art of peaceful living? And which then takes me to, okay, I've got all these books behind me, but The Secret Weapon, gives people access to understanding it for themselves. Once I gain the awareness, right? The first thing is I don't even know that I want peace. A baby just typically has peace. It screams when it doesn't. Like dirty diaper, hungry, annoyed, scream, but then it has peace. And then all of a sudden, one day we realize I want something that I don't know. And that's the moment that we actually have an opportunity to begin to learn. So the way that I help people learn it is through the secret weapon. And I look at it, I'm the secret weapon of my life. And when I work with someone, it's helping them become the secret weapon of their own life. First, it is the programs that are operating in someone's mind, which comes from the root program that creates a bunch of echo programs that are really running from the beginning. Someone who has dad problems usually has problems with their husband. It's echoing through the whole thing. Someone who has mom problems usually has problems with their wife. It's echoing through the whole thing. And so we help people see that. And then the tool that I'd offer to people in this moment is SLF, stop, listen, and feel. When I'm in a hole, the law of holes says stop digging. So the first thing I must do is stop. So if I have a problem of any sort, I must first hit the brakes and stop going deeper into the problem. Then I want to listen to, all right, where am I in thought around this problem I'm in the moment? For me, I have made that commitment to peace. So I instantly choose, how do I get to peace from here? And now I'm going to feel my way forward into that. So that's a big one. I think so often we're reactive, so there is no stop. People just step right into the same thing that they've been doing over and over, and it's the cycle that's been running. And you could take that as far as you want to go. You can look at our country. We repeat the same things over and over. You can look at the world and say we repeat history. Well, that's because we haven't yet stopped and said, okay, how are we doing this? And now feel to where we want to go. If we want a world full of peace, we've got to stop doing what we're doing, because obviously we're not getting there. So that's the big one. Stop, listen, and feel. For someone who's watching this that may be looking for something to pick up, stop. I don't care where you are in your life. The next moment is new. If you're still bringing the stuff from the past forward, you're creating the same thing over and over again. So you've got to stop it. Stop it, then listen to yourself. How are you bringing it? And feel your way into something new.
And so when you bring peace to yourself, that's what you use as well as what you teach, just
Oh,
to.
absolutely. Like stop can look like, now there's more to it, right? Like that's the easy of looking at it. But when I think of my own practice, my daily practice, we call it create. So you're creating your life. And the first one, that C is for centering, R is for research, E is for elevate, A is for awakening, T is for training, and then experience. So every day, and you can see it right over here behind me, that's where I meditate. At 4 a.m., between 4 and 5, I wake up every day and I sit for an hour to 2 hours. And that's the centering, which I start my day like that. I've created the life that I want, and I live into that by saying, okay, how do I stop? And then where do I go from here? So that's, it's a practice for sure.
Yeah, and I love those types of practices. Kind of like a member of the 5 a.m. club. So I get up at 5. I don't meditate right away because I'm afraid I'll go right back to sleep even in a sitting position. So I get up, I enjoy my coffee, and I read. I don't like turn on the TV or anything like that. And I've gone back to books because I used to read on my phone, but that's really not good first thing in the morning. And it's also really easy to kind of like scroll rather than read, and not not something I did often, but I'm guilty of. Books, inspirational books, books that will feed the mind, and then go into meditation or an exercise. And, for me, it's a nice way to start the day peacefully because there are no distractions. Life hasn't started to try and get in the way. If you understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then,
love it.
and then I poke the angry 17-year-old bear. Um,
Right on.
He's much better. He's much better, but still, you having children yourself know that sometimes that they can push that button faster than anybody else.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so your practice is beautiful. And when you are coaching people and leading people through finding peace and creating peace in their life, what are some of the challenges or any sort of repeat challenges that you see that maybe my viewers and I can learn from and overcome?
Well, the first one, I think everyone comes, not everyone, but a lot of people come to me with the initial. They don't listen. Most people do not listen at all. And they may think, "Oh, well, I listen because I don't say anything when someone's talking." Well, that's not necessarily listening. Like, what's going on in your thoughts? Are you thinking about how do you fix something, or, "Oh, what am I going to say next?" Or listening is just listening. There's nothing else going on. So I think that's one big common thing that I don't care what age group I go with. We lead um, teen camps, and I love helping little kids become athletes before they even think about being athletes. And the first thing I'm like, all right, you got to know how to listen. If you can't listen, how are you going to know what I'm even telling you to do? You know, so that's a common thing across the board in humanity, that I really feel that most people are not listening. And if we just started to listen to one another, generously listen without anything going on, then all of a sudden we start to feel like we have this connection with other people. So that's the first thing, is I'd say, is listening. And then I'd say a common thing is that there's very few people that will take accountability for everything in their life. Everything. Because for me, it no matter what I would have thought about my relationships before, they wouldn't be relationships without me being there. So so just owning the fact that no matter what has come forward in my life, I'm the one that had myself there. And that freed me. That gave me the ultimate of, okay, it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't, like, okay, let's say that you live in another country, a country you hate. Well, why are you still there? Like, if that's your thing, then it's okay to take accountability for it and move. And and I know people have all the reasons in the world why things don't work out for them. And I tell people, start being unreasonable. And that doesn't mean you're fixing everything. That means stop having so many reasons of why things don't work out for you. Be unreasonable, and allow yourself to find the reasons why it can work. And that usually works, you know. So that's what I'd say for anyone just listening. Like, here's a couple things. Listen, hold yourself accountable, be unreasonable.
I really like that last one, Nick, because it flips certain things over, and I love that. And being accountable can be hard. And it's like I too have gone through a divorce. I have to take ownership of my part in that for staying for however long and not seeing certain signs earlier. But I was accountable. It's like, okay, now how do I get out? But once I did, it was a good thing. But it takes two to tango. So who's your dance partner? You picked this dance partner. So, as you say, and listening is definitely a skill and an art. And if there's classes on listening, it's really a concern.
Yeah.
I will, I actually quite, there are times when I put my mom to the test and I'll say, what did I just say? If you can't repeat anything I said, I know you're not listening. It's like I even do that with my son. So when I start asking him, what did I just say? And you get the doe in the headlight looks, he's listening again. It's like, you might want to repeat that. So,
Right.
because
Yes.
it is an art. It is definitely an art. But going back to being unreasonable and holding yourself accountable, I like that because I also use that in my programs in the all the excuses disguised as reasons. And you've given me a lot of reasons, but you're the one running the day. Okay, so little Johnny's got practice at 3 and Susie's got dance at 5 and you've worked, but there's morning, there's lunch, there's when they go to bed to take time for yourself, whether that's meditate or journal or what have you to find some peace. So I love that you kind of echo that for me. And it's a big thing because finding peace is so important to centering to one's life. And you actually have a couple books on it.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And a couple more coming out. So, I mean, it's just peace is the one thing that just gave me everything. Everything. I was about to say it gave me peace. Well, yes, it gave me peace, but it gave me everything, access to everything. Because whenever I look at when I didn't have peace, it just wasn't working out, no matter what. Now I have peace, and it's like now I love to surf. My wife and I just surf for 13 straight days, and every day for 13 days. So, with that being said, I practice being at peace because you don't land every wave and you have to be able to be with the waves, which then helps me be with the waves of my emotions, right? Emotions, energy, and motion. They're just waves that come by, and you don't have to ride every wave. You don't have to get upset with them. You can be at peace and let them pass, observe them, and that's I've learned that. I in my life and being a surfer, I think of my life as the search for the perfect wave. And
Mm.
that's where it is. I'm not just going to ride every wave that somebody wants to give me. It's not going to happen.
And I've heard a lot of surfers say that, especially when you're riding like I don't know where you guys surf, but like they have some pretty high waves out in the tip of South Africa and Hawaii. And that's where, like, if you listen to some of those surfers, they're like, I'm not going to ride just anything. But then they try and ride that monster wave. And I was like, that might kill you.
Right on. Yeah, now I'm not that person. I did when they brought me to 35-foot waves. I said, "Hey, look, I know I just signed an insurance policy, and you're not taking me out. You're not getting me to die today." Yeah. Uh, so I get that, but you know, I mean, it can be a 2-foot wave and it can be a 10-foot wave, and you still have to pick the right one, the one that works for you. And I love that about surfing. It just makes it easy on me when I'm not on the board, you know. And I love being able to tell people, hey, I'm going to my board meeting. It's my surfboard.
That's great. That I love that. I might take up surfing just to say that.
Exactly.
So when you are the architect of peace. So what does that mean?
Well, as the architect of peace in my life, I had to create it. You know, an architect. It's beyond. I'm an artist. I paint. I do all these things. I've made music, but the architect is the one that builds it. You know,
Mm,
builds the foundation, gives the tools, puts the hammer on the nail. And that's what we've created. That's the 20 years since I left coaching football that I've dedicated my life to finding how to create this platform that allows people to have peace in their life. So I'm the architect of that. And one of the biggest things that we've come to recently is we just signed on with a company that gives us the actual ability to measure frequency through someone's voice. So someone is speaking, I can chart them and then give them back a reading that says, okay, here's where your frequency is. It can even tell you where it's in your blood, how it's off in your blood work, or often this intestine is speaking up more than this one, or whatever. This, your kidneys are saying this. All these different things come through your frequency of your voice. I mean, I learned this, I knew it for years. I having trained 3,000 yoga teachers, I would train people, and I've always been the type of teacher that's like, okay, hurt people hurt people. So we got to work on you before you go work on other people, because otherwise you're just giving them your frequency of hurt. Yet I could hear when someone would explain what's going on in their life, I'd always look at my wife and say, man, did you just hear this person sounds like so and so? And as I would do that, wish we had written down how many people sounded alike, because I would find that they all had gone through the same type of childhood things, childhood traumas, childhood whatever. And then, but now I know it's because the frequency is there. The frequency is happening. So when we do a voice analysis, when we do our voice sound check on someone's voice, it tells us where they are in those frequencies. And then it's like, okay, now it's easy. Before it used to be like people had to believe in Sid to say, oh, I trust Sid. Sid knows I'm not at peace. Well, yeah, you know you're not at peace. But now it's like, okay, I can show you. This is it. Now, do you really want your life to be up here? Because you are attracting everything. We all are. You know, take two tuning forks, hit them, one's vibrating, the other one will pick up the vibration. We
yep,
do the same thing. So someone who's vibrating at a super high level is going to attract those super high things, whatever people want to think about those. So now, if we get your vibration up to 100% peace right before enlightenment, you will have attracted everything that you want in your life. Just it. So I love that that people can now have that for themselves, and we can give them a chart. We can chart someone weekly or whatever as they're moving through the process for themselves to see, okay, I've made this shift. Oh, look at you. You just went down today. What'd you eat last week? Oh, I was drinking sodas, drinking beers. Oh, well, look at your vibration. Your vibration's down here. Now, oh, you eliminated all that. Oh, look at it climbing. And I know these things because what happened was someone said, hey, would you like to get charted? And I said, sure, why not? Let's see what happens. And they came back and said, how are you almost 100 at every frequency? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm at peace. You say that peace is the highest frequency, so there you have it. And now there's proof in the pudding. Now I've had other people before saying that I would back this product, I had other people tested that I knew had gone to their doctor and found out things that was wrong, and they got
Right.
told those exact things.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really impressive. And I know it would intrigue you, so I'll give you more information about it, because it's a great thing for someone that, as you are, as a Reiki practitioner, for someone to see their frequency changes and to chart it and know, okay, this is what you're experiencing now. If you're down here in shame, guilt, hurt, pain, your body is screaming,
Yes.
and it's asking you to shift up here so you no longer have to experience these low level frequencies. And and there's a guy in Cal Berkeley, can't remember the doctor's name, but he was a musician, led the orchestra and things like that. And he realized that you could take a frequency, someone could sing high enough, shatter glass, right? uh, you can take a frequency, and if you vibrate it high enough, shatters a bridge. You don't have to go knock the bridge down. If you can send shock waves out to that bridge, it will destroy it. So he was like, well, if you can destroy something like a glass and you can destroy something so much bigger, why can't you destroy something smaller like cancer cells?
I
uh
know this research. I knew, I was like, is this the same? Yeah.
yes.
Sorry,
And
didn't mean to cut you
so,
off.
no, that's okay. I mean, excitement's awesome. And so uh he figured out how to do that. That's what's in this machinery, to get to that frequency. And so not only do we have the ability to chart someone's frequency, we can actually give them the tones to listen to raise their frequency. So it's a pretty amazing thing.
I love to hear that because I recently we have a cat. I love I love a cat. But she automatically knows, and they purr at that one frequency to be able to help heal and regenerate bone. And I
Mm,
have a client who recently broke the top plate of her knee. I don't know the technical term for the bone on the knee. She said it several times, and my brain doesn't retain it. I don't know why. But she's allergic to cats, but I gave her the frequency to listen to and told her to focus, and she is actually healing remarkably well.
mm,
Very like she had her first surgeon follow-up, and she's healing very well.
that's awesome.
Um, and then they'll reattach the tendon. She did quite a number on herself. But having that frequency and being able to listen to the frequency and we're working on her meditative state and getting her into that meditation to help with the healing process. And those vibrations and those sounds so help. It's like if I can't sleep at night, I put on something, whether it's like 147, 174, 369, 963, depending on how they order them to
Hmm.
just calm the nervous system to sleep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So I love that you brought up that research because I've actually heard that research before where they did the waves and killed cancer cells. And I'm like, where was this in the 70s? It could have saved a lot of lives.
Right, but I mean, his research was over 10 years ago. And you know how many people haven't heard about it? It doesn't even make any sense. There used to be when someone came to figure out, all right, Sid, this is what you do. And I put hands on him, his knee felt better, all types of stuff. And he was like, all right, I got to go research this so we can figure out how I can help you do business. And he came back, and there was this medicineless hospital in China back in, I think it's the early 80s. You can find them still on YouTube, where you would go in. They actually MRI this tumor in this lady's stomach, and
Hmm.
these three doctors are over her chanting, and they keep the MRI the looking at this tumor, and it shrinks completely gone. China shut that business down.
Unfortunate.
I
But I
mean,
do. I think I may have heard about that too, but I've also seen it kind of in practice
Mm. Yeah, I
with
mean, that's Einstein said, and this is back in Einstein. I don't even know when he was alive, but I know it was a long, long time ago. And he said, the future of medicine is frequencies. Well, it's here.
it's here.
It's here. Yeah. So that's what we do. I love that. And at some point, I won't even be part of it. It'll be all over the world, and people will be like, oh, yeah, this is where you come. You want art of peaceful living? You heal all these things in your body just because the frequency shifts. And when you get to that level of peace, you have access to everything.
It's a true story.
Yeah, it's happening.
And as more and more of us gain access to peace, and obviously we want world peace, and as we branch out and as a collective, what are some of the things in your toolbox that you would say, hey, try this, or hey, try that, at any given time? I mean, whether it's working with kids that are, in the pee-wee leagues, or teenagers who are teenagers that are gonna, you know, exert their independence and not really kind of understand, well, hey, because we've tried with my son. It's like, hey, what you put out, you're getting. This is how you're making people feel. And I take into account, hey, he is an adolescent, but I also take into account, you're eventually going to have to be responsible for how you come into a room. People, and he's really actually starting to understand it. He's like, when I get bad vibes. And it's like, then leave the room. But it's like you can feel somebody's energy when they walk in. Sometimes they light up a room. Sometimes you're like, what just happened? Why do I want to leave?
Mm. Yeah.
So
And listen to that. My dad once was flying home, the plane that hit the Potomac Bridge in the 80s, and called my mom and said it doesn't feel right. He didn't get on the plane. That plane hit the bridge. You know,
smart.
he was supposed to be in a meeting in the Pentagon on 9/11. He canceled it. That meeting was with Colin Powell was supposed to be there and President Bush. My dad canceled, and they didn't go because it didn't feel right. We all know what happened. So I think it's important for people to just begin to listen. And listening looks like in many different ways. I heard it like this. A Indian, a Native American, is walking down the trail. An arrow comes, hits him in the head. Comes back another life. Then walking down the trail, he hears duck. He looks, gets hit, dies, comes back another time. Next time he's walking down, he hears duck. He then turns and ducks. The next time he's walking, he hears duck. Arrow just goes by. That is a process to listening to the voice that I started hearing at 3. There's a process to that. And there's times that I can be driving down the highway and hear get off because, and I don't. And then I'm like, I'm in traffic.
I've done that so
Right.
many times.
Exactly. But the beauty of that is you heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may have been late, but you heard it. So what I would tell people is listen. And as you listen, if you hear something late, celebrate that you heard it in the first place, because eventually you will just start hearing it and it will be no separation. And for me now, there is no separation. I don't hear it. It actually is me.
Yes.
That's when it becomes the union that yogis talk about, right? Yoga, to yoke, to bring union from your highest self to your earth self, bringing those two pieces together. That's yoga. And so for me, that's part of my practice. That's the practice for me, is bringing this union together of all things. Like I'm watching constantly on, okay, here's where I am. And when people are in my life in some way, that's the union. How do I bring it all together? So when I'm looking at, you asked about your son and younger people. First thing, I think it's important to really help young people know what they want. Because once you know what you want, then you have a true north. Every choice you make should be aligned with what you want. That's what I did with my football players. When they would first come in, and I put 23 guys in the NFL. When they would first come in, we'd ask, all right, over the next 4 or 5 years, where do you want your career to end? Not all of them said the NFL, but the ones that did, I would say, all right, well, then I know exactly how you should behave for the next 5 years. And if you don't, you didn't really want it. And I just remind them, remember, you said you wanted to be an NFL player. Why are you late for workouts? Why are you eating the way you are? Why are you out at 2 in the morning when you said you want to be in the NFL? You don't start being a professional football player, a pro athlete, a musician. You don't start that when you get there. You better be working on it before you get there, because when you get there, it'll be over and you won't make it. And so I think that's important for people to know, all right, what do you want with your life? Now, do you really want it, or is this just lip service? Because if it's lip service, it'll be easy to go do something else. If it's your driving desire, I'm committed to peace 100%. So it's easy for me to look at something and be like, that's not peace. I'm not choosing it. But I know that. So I love getting people to know if they truly want peace. Okay, you want peace, and or you want health, or you want a loving relationship. So if you want a loving relationship, why do you keep choosing to yell? You don't want a loving relationship, So I think that would be the biggest thing, I think, for parents, is to figure out, what does the child want, and then help them know how to get there, more so than what do I want from my child, because there is nothing wrong with dropping out of Harvard.
Oh,
The guy from FedEx, the guy from Google, like at Harvard, they actually tell you, if you have a great idea, bring it to us. And if your idea is so big, they tell them to drop out and go perform your dream. Like, they tell them to drop out. So if Harvard can do it, how can a parent do anything other than that to me? My son called and said, I don't want to play college football anymore. I want to come home and be a yogi. All right, well then I'm going to be your tough. It's going to be a lot tougher at home, because I'm now your university. But you want to do it? Let's do it. And now, at 23, he was owning studios and doing what he was doing. And I think that's so important, to help people figure out what they want, so that they can choose it all the time.
I am a firm believer. I agree with that. I come at it from a slightly different angle. In I can't live his life. It's not my life to live, it's his. So I will be here, I will guide him, but it's not my life to live. He said, I don't think he goes, I'm not a college kid. I'm not built for college. It's like, I'm not gonna spend that kind of money for something you don't want to do. So thank you for telling me now.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there's there's so many different roads to getting to where we want to go. So we have to figure that out for ourselves, and that's whomever. My brother knew he wanted to be a lawyer when we were little. I had no I knew I wanted to keep playing sports and keep playing with life. That's what I do. I play with sports. I coach people how to be at peace. It's I'm on the water 13 days in a row, because that's what I want with my life. And I'm happy, and so is he. So I think that's an important part of it.
well, happiness does bring a lot of peace.
Yes.
It
They're
does bring.
they're the two things that doesn't involve something else.
Right.
Happiness and peace. Both of them you got to do inside. And you can have them no matter what.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I would love to say thank you, Sid, for coming on to Unique Peace. This has been a beautiful conversation. I highly recommend everyone look into your books, The Secret Weapon, The Architect of Peace, as well as visit your website so they can learn more about you and how you can help coach them and coach us to being more peaceful in life.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yes, people can go over to artofpeacefulliving.com or sidmcnairy.com and Sid McNairy on all social media platforms. And I really appreciate the time and pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Okay. I'll put it in the green room. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Unique Peace. And I am looking forward to you joining us on the next episode. In the meantime, have a peaceful day, and we will see you next time.